I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. What's that? Okay, we have a couple presentations to.
Grandparents involved with the program have a caring manner that can provide just the right amount of motivation to a student. A warm smile and tender words that can make a difference in a sad day and make a day even better for each one of our students. The district's foster grandparent program currently has 2 South Huntington grandmas who provide support in reading, assistance with projects, games, and assist with daily classroom routines. We are grateful to these caring individuals who provide encouragement, help, and support with the tenderness that only a grandparent can provide. Please join me in a round of applause for Barbara Mead and Diane Vinci and all the wonderful work they do with their students in our district. Now, I was chatting with Diane a little bit before this. She is an Islander fan, so let's go radio silence here. And let's get up here as fast as possible so we can recognize the great work you do, so you can obviously give them good luck, and hopefully we make it to another game. Come on up. And Barbara, I would ask you to join her as well with us. Thank you so much. Truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Does the board come up and take a picture?
I'm looking at myself, so I can really appreciate what you do. I can really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We'll take a picture with the board. Moving on to our second presentation, we have a recap of our most recent trip to France. And I saw Dr. Ecknard the other day at the World Language Night, and she suggested that the students would love to tell us about their trip and everything that they learned. So, bonjour.
Hi everybody. Hi everyone. I am Gérald Ecknard. I am the French teacher at Walt Whitman High School. and here are my students. We were 15 people. I'm sorry, I'm here to remember. We were 15, two leaders, Mrs. Irizarry and I, and 13 students, and 4 of them are here with me. And we would like to just give you a peek of the joy that we had. So let's go for it. So this is the itinerary. We landed in Paris, and I'm going to let them take over.
So this is the itinerary for our trip. We landed in Paris, we went to Trouville, and basically all of these names you see are the places we visited, where we visited important sites for the culture, the history. We all saw it. And we went to the southern France, which was very rare for people to do most of the time. And as we continue, we see us at the airport. Monet's garden was the first stop. We visited the bridge, we went to his house. We got to live the life that he lived. And this was all pictures taken at Monet's garden. We saw his paintings, the scenery he saw, and we stopped in Trouville.
So here we are in Trouville, as you can see. It was really beautiful. We got to visit the beaches, and there we are. We were at this Con Peace Museum, where we got to see everything that everyone went through around D-Day and World War II. And here's a piece of the Berlin Wall, which is a really cool experience. We got to see that. And there's a tank, and there's all of us. And we went to Omaha Beach, which was really amazing to see. It was really eye-opening, and it was really amazing to just see everything that everyone saw on that really famous day. And there we are, all of us, in front of the statue. And there we are in front of, at the battlefield of Point de Hoc. And yeah, oh yeah, there's Eliana. Oh yeah, and there's us, yeah. And then we went inside the bunker, which was really, really, really amazing. There's all of us again. It was very windy. And yeah.
Hi. Okay. Oh, okay.
Tu peux cliquer ici.
Oui, merci. And then we have the chateau, and we basically got to learn about how the king basically kept his mistresses in this house. And sorry, was I not supposed to say that? Okay. It was really beautiful, and we had tour guides that basically taught us about the culture. Like, we didn't just look at it, we also got to learn about the history of it. And there's the garden. And then we got to see Leonardo da Vinci's residence. And basically you got to see where he painted, and you also got to see like the mechanics he made and stuff like that. And then we learned about the timbered houses and how all the buildings were lit up blue. And then the cathedral. We basically learned how all the windows tell a story of the past and stuff like that. So here's also the cathedral. Ronnie, take it away.
We had a picnic at the Garden of Versailles, which is really nice, really beautiful. We also saw the Palace of Versailles, which is also really beautiful. A lot of the gilded statues and the gilded arenas of the palace was really nice as well. A lot of history in there. We took a stroll around the palace, and because we were students, we got a great discount, and we were able to have pretty small wait time. I felt bad for the people who were waiting in line, but you know, it's life. This was the Hall of Versailles. We saw a bunch of paintings on the ceilings. It was really beautiful. Seeing everything in Versailles made you really understand like the cause of the French Revolution. If I saw that too, I would. This is Paris and the Eiffel Tower. It's pretty self-explanatory. It was an amazing experience. We went all the way to the top. We took the stairs though, because once again we are students. Yeah, we're students. And this is the L'Arc de Triomphe. This is the Arc of Triumph, or also called the Champs-Élysées, which is the avenue, and it was really beautiful. This was for the fallen soldier, I believe, neoclassicalism architecture, a lot of Napoleon II, I believe, or his nephew, Napoleon's nephew. Wow. And this was the Les Invalides, which was it was a kind of a monument, not really, but a location where Napoleon, coming back to Paris, saw the state of the soldiers who were in distress, and he built this place for the soldiers who came back from war and were injured and obviously on the street, so he built this place for them. And even here, there was a little mock burial place when Napoleon was exiled, and they had, while he was in the island where he was marooned to, there was a mock exile where Napoleon was buried, which is really cool as well. And then we went to the Louvre, which was also very beautiful. We had a great tour guide there, and we saw a bunch of the statues. We're also taught that with the rotation of a lot of the statues, with the curved shoulders and the moved hips, in this position, it's the second generation of Greek sculptures, the 2nd century before Christ, which is what the tour guide taught us, which is really cool. In the middle is Winged Victory there. We got to see that in person. And this is La Joconde, the Mona Lisa, famous picture. A lot smaller in person, actually. This was Sacré-Cœur. Should we switch?
The Sacré-Cœur was beautiful. You go up, you see the most amazing view of all of the city. And we visited this church, cathedral, and you walk around it and it's silent and you really just soak up all of the history and the beautiful time that it took to build it and all the stained glass and architecture. And then when you walk out, you go and you see the sunset in the most beautiful view. You get to overlook like all of the city, and it was probably one of my favorite parts. And then you go and we saw Pointe du Gard, which was beautiful, the aqueduct and the bridge that was built by the Romans, and you see all this history, and it's like incredible how so much history has been preserved through all of the country. And as we keep going, we see more pictures of us there. And then we have the Palais de Pâques, where I think, if I recall correctly, we danced outside of here.
Yes.
Yes, to the song Sur le Pont Avignon. I don't think the video is included, but yes, we did dance outside of it. We all went in a circle dancing. And Harper, would you like to do the painting?
So here we went to Cézanne's garden, and we got to see all like the view that he would be based about. Like it was roughly like 80 paintings, which is really amazing. And we got to sit and paint from the beautiful view that he saw, which is really incredible. And here we went to the Museum of Henri Matisse, and this was really amazing, like the architecture. And it's really amazing. One fact about this, it looks like stone, but it's actually painted on all the details. So it was actually, what was the material? Was it just? Yeah. So it was like, so that was really incredible. And then we went here to this monument, which is amazing. And then we went to, a perfume factory, which was really amazing. And we got a walkthrough tour, and that was really incredible. And here we are there. And here we went to Le Jardin.
Okay. Hello? Okay. We went to this garden. It was like a cactus garden. It was pretty cool. And we got this beautiful view. Some more pictures of the view. There we are again. Thank you, Dr. Eichenar, for taking on this trip. It was amazing. And Monsieur Zari. The seniors, some pictures of them before they go. Some more pictures. And then we went to this little sweet shop. It was pretty fun. And then there was Ronnie at the beach in Nice. You didn't go swimming?
Nah.
And then we went on this guided bike tour in Nice, and it was pretty fun. We got to see like the city on bikes, and pretty epic.
Another like underrated facet of this trip was a lot of the transportation. I know we didn't mention this before, but we did take the TGV, which is like a high-speed train. So imagine like 13 students and their luggage all trying to get into one train.
How fast does it go?
Oh, like 300 kilometers an hour. I don't even know what that is in miles per hour. It's pretty fast.
Almost as fast as the Long Island Railroad.
Yeah. This is one of the statues we saw in Nice. And if you know, Nice geographically is bordering between France and Italy. So on one of the statues here, on the lower part and the middle part of the statue, you have two women and a baby symbolizing the city of Nice being the baby, and the left and right side being Italy and France, I think, respectively. And the baby's leaning more to the right side, obviously symbolizing that it's more towards the French. And it was a really nice monument. It was really beautiful. This is more of Nice. It was kind of like the Miami of France. A lot of like elderly here. And this was the airport, and in the yellow is our wonderful tour guide, Mary Ellen Hickman. She was eccentric, but we love her, and she really took us to the nicest locations. And group leader and chaperone, Dr. Ekanar, Mrs. Irizarry. Thank you.
These are the 13 students who participated. And a big thanks to Mrs. Cheryl Irizarry, who could not be here tonight, but she was so valuable to us. And we also want to thank the members of the Board of Education and the administrators at the district level, as well as Walt Whitman High School, in particular Dr. Murphy, who was there at our meetings, and Mr. Costa, who was always ready to listen to me and going over all the details, and Mr. Castillo, who's not here, but he was very helpful for coming to the meeting and meeting the students and their parents. Thank you to the parents and participants, my great students. I can remember now they are my teachers. And they made that trip so unforgettable. And I've been to France so many times, maybe 20 times. And every time I take my students to France, I revisit France again because of their comments, their behavior, and their attitude, and the way they approach food. And to me, this it wasn't only a trip to France, it was the historical aspect. It was seeing my students speaking French without me being there. It's like, oh, yeah, they can speak it. Ooh, I created French monsters. And thank you so much to all of you. We really appreciated the fact that you approved this trip. Thank you. Many, many more. Dr. Murphy, you had to teach him. It's too
Questions by board members?
Here we go. Au revoir.
Questions by board members?
Oh, you have questions for me?
Two questions. How did I wanted you to talk a little bit about the food. How did you like the food, and what were your experiences with that? And my second question was, do any of you see future career as an architectural preservationist?
For both questions, the food is great. It's really good. Furthermore, the food that we had there, it's a lot of a toss-up culturally, because I know I shouldn't say this, but the northern part of France is like very more like English influence with Normandy and such. But then when you get down to the southern part of France, you know, France obviously has its own identity, but there's a bit of like Italian, Mediterranean influence more like it. So the food varied, where we went place to place, but it was delicious. It was usually gourmet. We went to a lot of like local restaurants, not any chain food restaurants. So you got like the authentic experience and everything. And what was your second question again?
Architecture.
Oh, architecture. I'm actually planning to pursue a career in architecture, so it was really nice seeing a bunch of the architecture in Paris. Specifically, they have a rule where they can't build buildings past the 8th floor, I believe so, because they want to preserve the historical skyline. And it was nice knowing about the arrondissement system in Paris, which is the districts. It was really cool. And like the walkable architecture, which is a lot you don't see in the United States because it's like an old ancient city. A lot of the places there too, with the cathedrals and like monuments, have been there for like at least a millennium, like 1,000 years. So I was touching trees and locations that I've probably been here longer than like the United States government. Maybe even my family lineage, like I can't even trace back 1,000 years. So it was really just awe-inspiring. We went to Pont du Gard, the aqueduct, which is like Roman infrastructure. So it was just really cool to see. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And now this is a video created by...
Yes, I'm so excited. I just want to look at the camera.
It's still rolling, by the way.
Bonjour, I'm in France.
Is what you gonna say?
Hi.
Harper?
Je joue contre vous, mais vous le voulez-vous? De tout cœur, je veux gagner ce cœur à cœur. Vous connaissez mon jeu par cœur, alors défendez-vous. Sans tricher, je vous le promets. J'ai gagné, tant pis c'est bien fait, vous êtes mon jouet. À présent, ce ne sera plus vous mais toi. Et tu feras ça, t'apprendras n'importe quoi pour moi. M'en faire, je vais t'assurer un enfer de griffes et de crocs. Tu crieras bientôt au secours. Alors décidant de ton sort, pour m'éviter quelques remords, je t'aimerai plus fort.
Salut! Salut!
It's really good. Go there. If you're in France.
Review.
Hi.
Excuse me. Christ! Yeah, absolutely. It's cold, but it's okay.
Dude, there's something indescribable about him. I don't know. Oh, I feel so touristy. Good, I got pushed off at it.
Ellie!
Hello. What's going on, family? How we feeling?
See, the look I've had can make a good man turn bad. So please, 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 let me get what I want.
You're filming that whole thing? We're about to go to the Eiffel Tower, guys! I'm good.
Candy.
I'm about to go in the metro. I'm scared I'm gonna get kidnapped. Sophia says piece of cake. I'm like,
Lord knows it would be the first time.
Where's Abby?
Lord knows it would be the first time.
Thank you so much for sharing this wonderful trip with us and taking the students on the trip. The students, you're so lucky to have that wonderful experience. I'm sure you'll remember it for your life, and wonderful also to have a phenomenal teacher and person to lead you. So thank you.
And thank you for having us. Au revoir.
Au revoir. She's a nice. She's so wonderful. Oh yeah. Yeah. That was great. Beautiful. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, no, that was their idea. They asked if they could do it. I said, oh, absolutely. Okay. All right. To our final presentation today, that was a really special one, is our technology update and review of new and incoming curriculum standards. We'll have a few presenters on this one. Dr. Murphy, you want to take the lead?
Yes, thank you so much. Obviously, this year's been very exciting. Not only have we added things with our own district, but there are things that New York State has added to where we can enhance educational opportunities and standards for our students as they exit out of South Huntington School District. I first would like to just turn over to Dr. Fulton, where she can talk about, as she did last year, all the improvements and additions we've made this year in terms of technology and infrastructure. Dr. Fulton?
Thank you. I'm having like this moment in my head where I feel like I'm on Saturday Night Live and it's like the weekend update. But here is the technology update for the 2022-2023 school year. Thank you. So continuing on with what we did last year, we're still working on our asset management. This has been an uphill battle. I've actually included some nice pictures for everybody to kind of see what we're dealing with, but Dr. Murphy, can you keep clicking? So the first thing we did this year is we started going back and looking at past purchases, going through all of our BOCES stuff that was purchased during COVID and importing all that into our system. So now we're able to check all of our items out to classrooms or to staff members. We continue with our surplus removal. If you could see the picture on the bottom left, that's kind of what we're working with over at Memorial. There's many, many years and generations of equipment that's stacked up that's obsolete. And if you look to the middle two pictures, that's kind of where we're transitioning to, where we're getting everything put on shelves and identified and labeled in a way that we know what is exactly on our shelves. When we go to the back, we can just pull it up and look at the database. Continuing of our new line board replenishment, we've replenished over 50 boards again this year, and we're going to continue to go in that pattern. We don't want to ever get stuck as a district in a position where we replace them all at once, because then you have to replace them all again in 7 to 8 years, and that's a huge budget impact. So we want to make sure we don't do that. And our teachers on the bottom right, that's like my happiest day of the summer, is when we're getting everything ready for our teachers to come back. Those are the Chromebooks ready for our new teachers. I think nothing is more important than really setting the tone for our new staff members. So when our teachers are coming in, we get their Chromebooks ready, in cases, checked out with ID cards, and it kind of helps them feel like they're part of the district. And our 6th grade students this year got Chromebooks again. We did that in September, and we also swapped out our 9th grade Chromebooks so we can continue with the replenishment, so they get Chromebooks every 3 to 4 years, and we don't ever get stuck with Chromebooks that are expired. Moving on to our help desk, we have a full service help desk. Always call us at extension 3066, remember that number. We are staffed fully from 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. We make sure that we have somebody there available at that extension. If you need help, you call that number and somebody will help you. But it's during school hours and district office hours. We made sure that somebody is there. We have our tech paras this year at our buildings. All 7 buildings have a tech para. They're there to help with Chromebooks, basic inventory, and any basic needs that can then be escalated to our technicians. All of our technicians have moved this year over to Memorial, so if anything happens, they are dispatched from there. But we feel that it's important to kind of keep our technicians together so they can share resources and information. And if somebody's out, there's always an easy way to get somebody else there to help out. We've also added some automation from Infinite Campus. This was very exciting. I worked with Dr. Rice on this. It was a collaborative effort, but when students come into our district, now we get notified via the help desk software. It comes from Infinite Campus and tells us a new student's arriving, and the same happens when a student is unenrolling. So we get that notification, we put tickets in, and we're able to kind of put those at the building level so the technicians or paras know when people are coming and going. So this has really helped us out a lot with getting Chromebooks in students' hands a lot faster this year. And as of this past year, from July 1 until now, we have over 6,000 tickets. So it just gives you an idea about how busy we are as a department. We're usually about 8,000 tickets per year. Our infrastructure updates are endless, but some of the things that we've done this year, on the bottom left, you can see that's what a typical wiring closet would look like. Afterwards, we have replaced the racks. Russell is our star of this year. He got to model our work being done, but that's what it looks like when we update our closets. All the internal fibers they were replaced between the Birchwood closets and also Stimson, and we replaced the racks at Birchwood. Now we're moving on to Countrywood. We've expanded the Wi-Fi at Birchwood into the hallways, and we installed new UPSs so that if there's power failures or any power spikes, we're not going to totally lose everything in the building. We're going to be able to sustain until the power comes back up. And we also expanded our firewalls. We're adding 2 additional firewalls for cybersecurity reasons, but all very positive. and we are installing new switches and a server at Silas Wood. I always use Silas Wood as my test site. And security updates, there have been many. Some of the ones just wanted to touch upon. We updated the Alertus server, so we have panic buttons that are able to notify the offices. Also, we can trigger this from remotely and send messages to all internal computers. We have all of our door access. Every school and district office got complete new door access. We increased the amount of door swipes probably about by like 150%. So we have now door access in many locations. No need to chock open doors or leave things unlocked. We have access to active monitoring, so we can open up the door access software and see who's accessing doors, which doors are left ajar, and be able to be proactive. We've also added on the bottom left, you can see the picture of our security substation for monitoring. That's over at Transportation. And we did many, many camera upgrades. One of the objectives for this year was to replace some of our cameras using our own resources, our staff electrician, and our IT department at a more cost-effective rate. And by doing so, we're getting cameras that have better coverage and less cameras on the screen. So these are all good things that are happening. And just one thing I wanted to point out, even though I'm not going to talk about instructional technology, I'm very proud of the Mac Lab that we installed this year at Waltman High School. Having the students in our art program have access to an entire lab of Mac computers that will be supplemented with Cintiq drawing tablets for next year is a great addition to the high school art program. Thank you.
Doesn't include all the great work that's been going on at Silas with the Makerspace as well. You did beautiful work as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fulton. The other two items that we'd like to bring up that have been significant advances in instruction and curriculum, one being our new science testing, as the board saw a couple months ago, where we saw some of the science investigations that students are going to have to go through, as New York State Education Department has decided that 4 of these for 3rd through 5th and 4 other labs for 6th through 8th. But before we get into that, some of the advancements, just like in the next generation standards for science, phys ed standards have had an update themselves, which they call the 2020 Physical Education Learning Standards. These standards are really to bring physical education into the 21st century, to teach them skills, to teach students skills, and things that they will be able to utilize outside of the classroom and as they move on. This was a long process where they took the input and advice of physical education teachers, people from around New York State, and they took a couple years to vet these things out to make sure that they were maximizing what they wanted to teach within the physical education curriculum as well as health. As I mentioned before, this process started in 2020, but they are to be implemented in the fall of 2023. To better understand the standards, I've asked for Mr. Barth to come up and discuss them in terms of its entirety and how that will relate to the physical education curriculum and health curriculum here in South Huntington School District.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Murphy. So, as Dr. Murphy said, last time the New York State Physical Education Standards were updated was 1996, so this was a long time coming to bring it to the 21st century. And you can see right here the key features of the new standards as they have right there. Throughout the presentation, what you'll see is the shift in physical education as lifetime activities and overall wellness, and that is the overarching goals of the new standards. And the standards give us that roadmap, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we use that roadmap, but it gives everybody across the state the same goals, the same outcomes to look to achieve. So as you can see up here, the key features of the physical education learning standards is that they are inclusive, that they meet the needs of all students. And again, in a large and diverse district like our own, we have a large and diverse state as well. So it's important to have these standards and to have the goals reach all students. It is, of course, important to develop physical literacy, which is basically that students are proficient in all skills. So while we certainly understand not all students like certain sports or activities, it's important that they are competent and proficient in those skills, because at some point in their life, they may be teaching the next generation these skills. So that's an important piece. Big piece is addressing the social and emotional needs through personal health and fitness. And that these standards do not specify one method of instruction. And that was an important piece that they looked at when making these standards, is that, again, There are different needs in different districts, and Long Island is much different than Buffalo. And finding that balance to meet the needs was an important piece to all of these standards. And then, of course, collaboration and teamwork, and looking at different ways and the unique factors in each school in order to achieve these standards. So those are the key features when going over the new standards. As you can see right here, we have our 6 New York 2020 standards. As you see in the left in the red, they lead into, those are called the anchor standards. They lead into the strands, which then eventually lead into the K through 12 grade level objectives. So for example, we have an anchor standard number 1 up there, demonstrates competency in a variety of motor skills and movement patterns. And then it goes across to the strands. There are 4 strands in this anchor standard. And then within that, goes to the grade level outcomes for K through 12. So when you look at the strands, there are 16 of them. These are mirrored off of the national standards, which has 146 strands. So New York State took the opportunity to actually streamline it and go with the concept that less is more. And by doing that, it allows us to focus on what is important. And you'll see throughout all those strands, you see sports skills and games, which a lot of people think of when they think of physical education. But you look through the rest of it, that is all about lifetime activity and wellness in a variety of disciplines. Dance is a big part, yoga and mindfulness, personal fitness, and those are the standards, those are what the standards really represent, the overall wellness. So we look at the anchor standards, go to the strands, and then they go to the grade level objectives, Dr. Murphy. And here's an example of a grade level outcome for standard 1, strand 3, fitness activities. So this is what our physical education teachers K through 12 would look at when looking to achieve the fitness activities standard 1, strand 3. So for example, in first grade, when they leave first grade, we want all students to demonstrate in isolation emerging forms of locomotor, non-locomotor, and manipulative skills. So that is an objective that every first grader would have. Now the beauty of the standards is that while it gives us what they want us to reach, it allows the teachers the opportunity to teach it the way they want to teach it. So when we look at code versus curriculum, it's important to look at what we want to teach and what we want to achieve, but different ways to do it. And that allows our professionals to be professionals, to have one guided focus on what we want our students to learn, and it allows the local level and the local school district to decide the curriculum that best impacts their students. Because again, what we're looking at on Long Island is much different than what's going on in Buffalo. Yet we have the same goals. It's just how we get there may be different. So those are the new 2020 standards. We've been working with our K through 12 teachers on this. All teachers have the updated books in each building. They have posters that are being displayed in each gymnasium, and we're going to continue to work with these standards into next school year to ensure that our units right now and our lessons right now are meeting these.
When you say books, like they provide workbooks or more detail on each of these strands and then standards?
Yeah, we have a K through 6 manual from New York State and a secondary manual 7 through 12. So every building has their grade appropriate manual, and it's a very in-depth manual that goes through different types of assessments, sample lessons, written assessments, visual assessments, sample lessons, and everything that goes along with it.
And how do the teachers ensure that these, that they're at the end of grade 1 that they're able to do, one of these skill sets?
So they do have assessment checklists sort of to assess the curriculum where they're at. So when the teachers do look at their lesson plans and they do look at what they're teaching, can they check off that that the students are meeting those standards? And like I said, the new book that comes out with has different forms of assessment. A lot of the assessments that we do recommend is the visual assessment, whether it's in small group or large class activities.
Board, have any questions for Mr. Barth? Thank you. Very detailed new standards.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Dr. Murphy.
Thank you. In addition to this, as I mentioned before, we wanted to give a little update. At Curriculum Council last week, we went into great depth. Over the last couple of months, or I should even say years, New York State has updated their science standards as well with the next generation science standards. And in addition to that, they've added investigations at the intermediate and middle level that all students must take in order to take their 8th grade science or 5th and 8th grade science test. These are science investigations were meant to be hands-on. They're laboratory experiences that give a variety of activities for students to be able to participate in. Now, 15% of the state tests that are based in science will be associated with these investigations at both the intermediate and middle level. And really what these activities are supposed to do is give hands-on learning to students, provide them with the information to be successful on this test, and also drive their interest level in some of these activities, maybe at the later grade levels. So this is just these are the 4 required investigations for elementary: life cycles and traits. Really, it's a biology investigation. We have energy lighted up, which deals with electricity and some of the skills that come or go along with it. Weather and climate, or what they call cloud in a bottle. This also fits in the 5th grade unit of the water cycle, which they learn in 5th grade, as well as structure and properties of matter, which they namely call what's in the bag. All 4 of these have to be done between 3rd and 5th grade, and then what Dr. Murphy and Ms. Hahn had worked with the teachers to do is see where they would fit within the curriculum between 3rd and 5th grade, and where the middle school ones, which are seen above now, would fit within the 6th to 8th grade level so that it kind of fit with the curriculum. These are extensive labs and investigations that must be done. They do take away from class time in terms of preparing for other tests. So this is something we wanted to make sure that we coordinated and that we were structured enough so it was a minimal impact to the science classrooms. Within the middle school, we talked about, these are some of the titles: structures and properties of matter, energy or coolant, another weather and climate, which is a little more, it's a little higher end, especially because at the middle level, as well as structure, functioning, and information processing. This quick graph just tells you where the committee, Ms. Hahn and Dr. Murphy, who did extensive work with this, where they wanted to place these as they fit within the science curriculum at the grade levels. Now, unfortunately, New York State said that we had to complete some of these, even though students had some limited time in terms of being able to do all 4 investigations. So as you see in the graph, if they are a current 4th grader or in the 22-23 school year, they're going to have to do 2 of these investigations, and then as 5th graders in the 23-24 or next year, they would have to do 2 investigations. Those that are coming into 3rd grade or in 3rd grade this year, they only have to do 1 investigation, 4th grade 1 investigation, and then 5th grade 2 investigations. At the administrative level, or the middle level, this is the administrative schedule. As I mentioned before, depending on where they were in their grade, will dictate on where they'll take these investigations. If they're a current 7th grader, they're going to do 2 this year and then 2 in 8th grade. If they're a current 6th grader, they would do 1 this year, 2 next year, and then 1 in their 8th grade year. Again, as I mentioned, this really is, because the state's saying they didn't give us time to say only this grade level has to do this investigation, they pretty much said all 4 have to be done no matter what. So we wanted to make sure, or Dr. Murphy and Ms. Hahn wanted to make sure that we were structured and we were giving the support to the elementary and middle school principals to make sure that these get completed in a timely manner. Just like many things that come from the state, unfortunately, these all take materials and supplies, and they are unfunded, meaning any of these labs or articles that we needed to purchase had to be purchased by districts, and this was not something that was going to be compensated by the state. Dr. Senimore has been really great about coordinating with us and making sure with Dr. Murphy that we have these supplies and that we're able to make these investigations so we don't fall behind for lack of supplies. One thing we are finding is that every district is trying to clamor for these materials, and the vendors are very few and far between, which unfortunately then jacks up price as well. God bless capitalism. So some of the expenditures will be a yearly occurrence. What we're hoping to do is make our own kits, that these kits will be able to be sustainable, meaning a majority of the percentage of the materials we'll be able to use from year to year. But unfortunately, some of these things will have to be a yearly cost. The activities were specifically designed to we're supposed to be for relatively simple and inexpensive materials. That is the case, but it's the quantity of materials that we're still trying to just purchase. Some of the things that we had to come up, and Dr. Murphy and Ms. Hahn, along with the science teachers, is where are we going to store these investigations where they're done, much like Regents exams. What they are saying, the state is saying, is that we must hold these exams until, or these investigations until a student completes their exam. So if it's 3rd to 5th grade, we hold all investigations so that they can be audited by the state if they want to. And then once they take their 5th grade test, we can then discard any of the investigations, much like a Regents exam once students after a uncertain number of years.
Except it takes up a lot of room then.
Takes up a lot of room. Well, these are paper exams. It's not so much the material. It's not like we have to keep their lab supplies,
Okay.
but we do have to keep their lab on file, just like a Regents exam. But it is still a considerable amount of paper. One of the other things that we looked at is obviously how do we purchase equipment. Dr. Centimore in the business office has been great about that. We have been doing extensive PD. Obviously, Dr. Murphy and Ms. Hahn have been leading that, getting the information needed, and then they are turnkeying that to the science teachers at both the middle and intermediate level. One thing we learned is if they're, especially this is more at the honors level, at the middle level, if a student is taking a Regents exam in 8th grade, they are not required to take these science investigations. So we're still in the process of trying how to determine, because you'll have some students that will be in the honors track in 7th grade. If they struggle, they go down to a lower track in the 8th grade level, and then they're deficient in these investigations. So we're still working that process out. Obviously, we're giving these, so we will be able to make sure that students are supported in that. But these are things that are all coming up that we're making sure that we're addressing. And what we do is, what do we do if a student opts out? Much like in some of our opt-out tests, these are still processes we're still working on. We do have some time for that, but we do feel that these labs are beneficial for students. They're not being graded, as I mentioned before. So really there isn't an ability to opt out because there's nothing to do with tests or grading. This is just part of the curriculum. And again, what do we do with students that are new to the district? Somebody who just enters in 8th grade and now is required to take these 4 investigations. As I mentioned before, it is not just us feeling these pressures, it's all districts. This is a state mandate, but it is something that we are addressing and making sure that students and teachers are supported in the manner they should be. As I mentioned before, this is just stuff we wanted to be able to share and give to the Board of Education to make sure they know that we are on top of some of the concerns and some of the things we're addressing to make sure students are supported.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Any questions from the board? Yes, Ms. Meyer.
Dr. Murphy, in the dual language program in 3 through 5, are the investigations done only during the English side of the curriculum? And for ENL students, are there materials available to them in a language that they can understand?
Yes, so the state allows us to, and especially some of the wording in some of these investigations are a little higher than the intended grade level because they span over 3 grade levels. So the state allows us to make alterations on some of the lab materials or some of the information given. While the students have to complete the labs, there is, they do provide those avenues for support, whether it be with bilingual labs or even just support from the teachers. So there are a lot of avenues to make sure all students, whether they're special education or ENL, are supported.
Any questions? Okay, great. Thank you for keeping us updated on these changes. All right, moving into our business agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Ms. Meyer, seconded by Mr. Scragg. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, items C through F require 1 resolution for adoption. That's just our schedule of bills today. Motion. Ms. LaCara, seconded by Mr. Joyner. Any questions on items C through F? All in favor? Any opposed? Communications are listed. We have an invitation from David Barth to join in the mini-thon at Memorial on May 16th, 2023.
You don't have to run.
You don't have to run. You can if you want.
Sure.
All right. If you want to attend, please RSVP as set forth therein. Moving on to new business. That's our main purpose of our meeting today. The first is the vote on the Western Suffolk BOCES 2023-2024 annual budget. Is there a motion? Ms. Meyer, seconded by Mr. Biangasso. Any questions on their budget? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, Western Suffolk BOCES is adopted. And then going along with that is the vote on the candidates to the board for the Western Suffolk BOCES. And the candidates are Ms. Michelle Costera from the Huntington School District, Ms. Jeanette Santos, longtime member, Amityville School District, and Peter Wunsch, also a longtime member from the Comac School District. 3 candidates for 3 spots. Are there any questions? All in favor, and when we vote in favor, it's for all 3. Any opposed? Item 3 is a request to remain in South Huntington for 2 students, a 12th grader and a 7th grader. Is there a motion? Mr. Bronson, seconded by Mr. Scragg. Any questions about this one? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, moving on to item 4 is the approval of an agreement with Western Suffolk BOCES. Motion. Mr. Scragg, seconded by Mr. Biancasso. Dr. Centimore.
Thank you, Mr. Ciapetta. Earlier in her presentation, Dr. Fulton referenced our Chromebooks. This multi-year agreement is to replenish the Chromebooks for our 9th grade students at Walt Whitman High School.
Okay, are there any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? And moving on to our last item of new business, it's the amendment to a memorandum of agreement between the South Huntington School District and the County of Suffolk. Is there a motion? Ms. Meyer, seconded by Mr. Joyner. Dr. D'Elia?
Yes, this is an annual thing where we receive some profits from the school bus stop arm program. Last year we received about $30,000. This year we are receiving, with your approval, $38,764. So thank you for everybody for paying those fines. But that's what it is, and they're pretty expensive fines. So, because anytime I see a school bus, I'm very careful, for many reasons, very careful.
I guess a lot of people are not.
No, I think it's $250. Yeah, it's pretty steep. But you know what? The mission of it is, because we've had some issues with individuals just driving real quickly past the stop sign that's out on a bus. So it's very scary, very dangerous. So I believe it is also accomplishing its mission to create a safer environment around our students and all students on buses.
Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, moving on to personnel. We have personnel schedules 2, 5, 9, 15, 17, 20, and 22. Is there a motion? Mr. Joyner, seconded by Ms. LeCarrot and Mr. Bronson. All in favor? Any opposed? Personnel schedules are listed. Our next meeting is May 9th, back here for the public hearing of the budget, followed by May 16th, which is our board elections and our budget vote. And comments by board members. Ms. Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Ciapetta, and I also wanted to give an update from the Wellness Committee, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
So we've met recently a number of times. We're actually meeting again early tomorrow morning. But we are very pleased to say that we have finished going through the updated wellness policy. So it's now moving on to the policy committee, chaired by Mr. Bronson, and we're very eager to report that the revised policy now moves beyond just nutrition, with the great help of Mrs. Busey, of Mr. Barth, and of course Mrs. Paprillo, to focus on 4 areas, so still nutritional, physical, social emotional, and mental well-being. And the way that we've drafted the language in the policy is to ensure that as we want to add other focus areas, taking a very holistic approach to wellness, we have the opportunity to do so rather easily. We also discussed Mindfulness Month, or Mental Health Awareness Month, which is in May, and how we as a committee will be able to support CHEF in its events, which kick off next Monday. So hopefully everyone has seen that calendar. And Mrs. Busey and the CHEF committee have done a wonderful job with adding many, many more events in addition to the run on May 20th. Hopefully you've seen the billboard and signed up. So please do your best to attend those events that address those 4 core areas. And we look forward to being able to present to the board on May 9th an update overall on wellness.
Great. Look forward to the presentation. Thank you. Okay. I'd like to congratulate Iris Hoffman and Dan Trebor, who were made as named as player and coach respectively to the All Long Island basketball team. Quite an honor, and we'll be honoring the team in our last meeting in June. Also like to report, Mr. Joyner and myself had the opportunity to attend a conversation with the Commissioner, Dr. Betty Rosa, last night over at the Heritage Room in Bethpage. It was a good opportunity. I don't believe that the Commissioner's visited Long Island all that often. Incredibly busy. Her team took some time out to answer some questions from the panel. They discussed some controversial issues. Didn't get too much information really about things to come. They did discuss some issues that don't necessarily involve us, like the naming of mascots and team logos in response to new policy regarding indigenous people that affects about 12 districts on Long Island. So they discussed that timeline. They discussed the Blue Ribbon Commission, which is meeting on the future of graduation. That's in its, they've been meeting throughout the year with hundreds and hundreds of people. There's about 50 plus people on the committee. They meet with students on a weekly basis. They didn't really say what their ultimate deadline is or ultimate goals. There's been some speculation that it's going to mean the end of the regents. They acknowledged that speculation, but didn't necessarily quell the speculations. So we didn't really get any answers there either. And the final area that they talked about some special ed and improvements. They talked about charter schools and perhaps having the state regents be the final authority on charter schools. Right now, SUNY also has a say, and that they can approve charter schools over the objection of the Department of Education. And the last item that they talked about, probably the most significant one going forward, at least for us, until we know what's happening on the Blue Ribbon, is there is money in the budget, if they ever pass the budget, they do expect that to be done by the end of the week, for studying of foundation aid formula changes. And that would entail an RFP to hire somebody to review it. It's likely that would take a whole year, so it might not even make it into next year's budget, but those changes could be significant, depending upon how they tweak the formula. As we've talked about, we're fully funded now under the existing formula, but there's still concerns that that formula doesn't equally distribute the money. So that's the update from the Commissioner. Anyone else? Dr. Lee, you have anything?
Sure, a couple things. I'd like to congratulate Lizzie Schreiber as a News 12 Scholar Athlete. I believe it was aired today or airing today. Is that true, Mr. Barr? Okay. All right, we're super proud of her. Also, we recently received information on a former graduate, Gianna Paul, who is now in training with the under 18, under 19 U.S. national women's team. That is an incredible feat. So I hope we all keep an eye on, see how Gianna's doing, and you never know. You know, a lot of competition there. So, but she's definitely impressed. I believe she made the all-rookie team in the Southeastern Conference. She plays soccer for University of Alabama. So that's good. Gold tide. That's right. So we're wishing her well and great luck moving forward. And also, next Tuesday, May 2nd, I know the high school that's their college decision day, and we're going to really be out supporting not just the high school, but make it a K-12 initiative where we're going to support all the seniors at Walt Whitman High School. So we're going to let all our students wear their favorite college shirt. We'll let them wear hats for the day. Elementary principals, you know the kids love that. Mm-hmm. So we're looking forward for a K-12 celebration of our seniors next Tuesday, and there'll be more parent squares going out on that.
Excellent.
That is it.
Good, thank you. All right, voice of the residents. Any residents like to address the Board of Education? Okay. With that, I'll take a motion to go. Yes. Oh, sorry. No. Okay. You weren't on the agenda today. All right. With that, take a motion to go into executive session to discuss a matter of personnel. Motion, Ms. Meyer, second. Mr. Bronson, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you all. Have a good evening, and see you on May 9th.